Everything you need to know about bride price. Hello Displorers, welcome to another informative video presented to you by Displore. In this video, we shall discuss everything you need to know about bride price. Bride price or bride wealth or bride token is money, property or any other form of wealth being paid by a groom or his family to the family of the woman he will be married to or is just about to marry. Bride price can be compared to the dowry, which is paid to the groom or used by the bride to help establish the new household, and dower, which is property settled on the bride herself by the groom at the time of marriage. Some cultures may practice both dowry and bride price simultaneously. Many cultures practice bride pricing prior to existing records. The tradition of giving bride price is practiced in many Asian countries, the Middle East, parts of Africa, and in some Pacific Island societies, notably those in Melanesia. The amount changing hands may range from a token to continue the traditional ritual to many thousands of US dollars in some marriages in Thailand, and as much as $100,000 in exceptionally large bride prices in parts of Papua New Guinea, where bride price is customary. There are also different traditions and rituals that accompany the bride price, depending on the country or region. But first, let's examine what is the function of bride price. If you're new here, welcome. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our videos. Function of bride price. Bride price is commonly paid in the currency that is not generally used for other types of exchange. According to French anthropologist Philippe Rospabe, its payment does not entail the purchase of a woman as it was thought in the early 20th century. Instead, it is a purely symbolic gesture, acknowledging the husband's permanent debt to the wife's parents. Dowries exist in societies where capital is more valuable than manual labor. For instance, in Middle-aged Europe, the family of a bride-to-be was compelled to offer a dowry of land, cattle, and money to the family of the husband-to-be. Bride wealth exists in societies where manual labor is more important than capital. In sub-Saharan Africa, where land was abundant and there were few or no domesticated animals, manual labor was more valuable than capital, and therefore bride wealth dominated. An evolutionary psychology explanation for dowry and bride price is that bride price is common in polygynous societies, which have a relative scarcity of available women. In monogamous societies where women have little personal wealth, dowry is instead common, since there is a relative scarcity of wealthy men who can choose from many potential women when marrying. The custom of paying bride prices is widely practiced in the world and Africa. The traditions vary, and for the sake of this video, we will touch on to a few regions and how the bride price practice is done there. Mesopotamia. The Code of Hammurabi mentions bride price in various laws as an established custom. It is not the payment of the bride price that is described, but the regulation of various aspects. A man who paid the bride price but looked for another bride would not get a refund, but he would if the father of the bride refused the match. If a wife died without sons, her father was entitled to return of her dowry, minus the value of the bride price. Jewish tradition. The Hebrew Bible mentioned the practice of paying a bride price to the father of a virgin, an unmarried young woman. Exodus 22:16-17 states, "A man seduces a virgin who is not engaged and lies with her. He must pay a dowry for her to be his wife. If her father absolutely refuses to give her to him, he shall pay money equal to the dowry for virgins." In the Jewish tradition, the rabbis in ancient times insisted on the marriage couple entering into a marriage contract called ketubah. The ketubah provided for an amount to be paid by the husband in the event of a divorce or by his estate in the event of his death. This amount was a replacement of the biblical dower or bride price, which was payable at the time of the marriage by the groom. This innovation came about because the bride price created a major social problem. Many young prospective husbands could not raise the amount at the time when they would normally be expected to marry. So to enable these young men marry, the rabbis in effect delayed the time that the amount would be payable, when they will be more likely to have the sum. It may also be noted that both the dower and the ketubah amounts serve the same purpose. The protection for the wife should be her support, either by death or divorcees. The only difference between the two systems was the timing of the payment. In fact, the rabbis were so insistent on the bride having the benefit of the ketubah that some even described a marriage without one as being merely concubinage, because the bride would lack the benefit of the financial settlement in case of divorce or death of her husband, and without the dower or ketubah amount, the woman and her children could become a burden to the community. However, The husband could refuse to pay the ketubah amount if a divorce was on account of adultery of the wife. In traditional Jewish weddings to this day, the groom gives the bride an object of value, such as a wedding ring. The ring must have a certain minimal value, and it is considered to be a way to fulfill the halakhic legal requirement of the husband making a payment to or for the bride. Islamic law. Islamic law commands the groom to give the bride a gift called a mahr prior to the consummation of marriage. A mahr differs from standard meaning of bride price in that it is not to the family of the bride, but to the wife to keep it for herself. It is thus more accurately described as a dower. In the Quran, it is mentioned in chapter 4 and Nisa verse 4 as follows, "And give to the woman whom you marry their mahr, which is obligatory bridal money given by the husband to the wife at the time of marriage, with a good heart, but if they of their own good pleasure remit any part of it to you, take it and enjoy it without fear of any harm, as Allah has made it lawful." There is also a tradition of mourning gifts, which might be arranged by the bride's father rather than the bride, and are given to the bride herself. Contemporary African cultures. In parts of Africa, a traditional marriage ceremony depends on payment of a bride price to be valid. In sub-Saharan Africa, bride price must be paid in order for the couple to get permission to marry in church or in other civil ceremonies, or the marriage is not considered valid by the bride's family. The amount can vary from a token to a great sum, real estate, animals, and other values. The animals and money are not always paid all at once. Depending on the wealth of the groom, he and his family can enter into a non-written contract with the bride's family, similar to the Jewish ketubah, in which he promises to pay what he owes within a specified period of time. This is done to allow young men who do not have much to marry, while they work towards paying off the bride price as well as raising a family. Or wait for their own sisters and aunts to get married so they can in turn use the amounts received to offset their debts to their in-laws. This amount must be paid by his family in the event he is incapacitated or dies. It is considered a family debt of honor. In some societies, marriage is delayed until all payments are made. If the wedding occurs before all payments are made, the status is left ambiguous. The bride price tradition can have destructive effects when young men don't have the means to marry. In strife torn South Sudan, many young men steal cattle for this reason, often risking their lives. In mid-20th century Gabon, a person's whole life can be governed by the money affairs connected with marriage. To secure a wife for their son, parents begin to pay installments for a girl who is only a few years old. From the side of the wife's family, there begins a process of squeezing, which goes on for years. In sub-Saharan Africa, the visits between families to negotiate the bride price are traditional customs that are considered by many Africans to be central to African marriage and society. The negotiations themselves have been described as a crucial component of the practice, as they provide the families of the bride and the groom the opportunity to meet and forge important bonds. The price itself, independent on its value, is symbolic, although the custom has been described as the license of owning a family in the African institution of marriage. In some African cultures, the bride price of a bride is connected with her reputation and esteem in the community, an aspect that has been by foreigners criticized as demeaning to women. In some African cultures, such as the Fang people in Equatorial Guinea and some regions in Uganda, the price is considered the purchase price of a wife. One point of critique says the husband so might exercise economic control over her. The majority ethnic group of Equatorial Guinea, the Fang people, practice the bride price custom in a way that subjugates women who find themselves in an unhappy marriage. Divorce has a social stigma among the Fang, and in the event that the woman intends to leave her husband, she is expected to return the goods initially paid to her family. If she is unable to pay the debt, she can be imprisoned. The common term for this arrangement in South Africa is lobola, from the Nguni language, a term often used in Central and Western Africa as well. Elders control the marriage arrangements. In South Africa, the custom survived colonial influences but was transformed by capitalism. Once young men began working in mines and other colonial businesses, they gained the means to increase the lobola, leading elders to increase the value required for lobola in order to maintain their control. The lobola can either be money, cows, or both to the bride's family as a gesture of willingness to marry her. The payment of lobola is a sign of the man's commitment to take care of his wife and is seen as a symbolic act and a necessary part of upholding culture rather than a purchase. The term lobola is also used in southern Zimbabwe, but in Shona communities it is known as rura. And while the tradition is to give cattle, this is now often replaced by cash. The amount is subject to negotiation. There are several stages to the tradition and it is seen as a way of thanking the bride's family for bringing her up, but there is no sense that the bride is being bought. The payment of bride price is customary in Senegal, but largely symbolic. A small amount of money on a kola nut is given to the bride's family at the mosque. After that, the sum handed over can be anywhere from less than $100 to tens of thousands. The Kenyan constitution outlaws the obligation to pay a bride price, but it is widely understood that it will be paid. Pastoral communities insist that it is paid in cattle, and it has been cited as a cause of cattle rustling, whereas families in other communities will accept cash. There is a sense that the transaction has taken place over the bride. In Burkina Faso, the bride price is commonly paid in Burkinabé culture and is largely a symbolic act. There is no set amount and a little money is given, but it is mainly in goods such as kola nuts, drinks, cigarettes, and some ethnic groups may give a goat. However, a bride's family is not normally too demanding. In Niger, there is an official maximum rate for a bride price of 50,000 francs CFA, or $83. The price is agreed between the families, but it is seen as a symbolic act rather than about buying the wife, as Nigerians say. No matter how much is paid, you cannot buy a human being. The culture of bride price is a long-standing tradition which has made many nations and their various cultures unique. The process should be a bonding one and not one to ruin the relationships of the two getting married. It is a worldwide tradition still practiced in most cultures, even though in a lesser degree. But one thing is certain, the bride price custom is going nowhere anytime soon. There you have it, Displorers. That is everything you need to know about bride price. Thanks for watching this video. If you did enjoy, tell all to give it a thumbs up, don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends.